The right question at the right time. Why truth hits harder when you're ready. The hardest truths aren't the ones you're told. They're the ones you realize on your own. Introduction. You can't force self-awareness. Ever tried to explain reality to someone who just wasn't ready to hear it? You tell your friend their relationship is toxic, but they defend their partner. You show someone undeniable proof they've been manipulated, and they double down. You explain why someone's mindset is self-destructive, and they just call you a hater. And then, months, years, or even decades later, they suddenly say, "Wow, I finally see it." It's like it's brand new. Like they weren't told the same thing 100 times before. Like they just discovered fire and not the same "you're dating a dumpster" memo you've been slipping under their door for years. So what happened? Did they suddenly become smarter? No. Did the truth suddenly become more true? No. What changed? They were finally ready. Telling people the truth before they're ready is like throwing seeds onto dry, cracked earth. Nothing takes root. The real art of persuasion, leadership, or even being just a good friend isn't about forcing reality into someone. It's about planting questions that haunt them until they can't ignore them anymore. Think of it like tossing a mental grenade with a slow fuse. Boom goes the denial, but only when they're ready to duck. This episode is about how to understand why people resist the truth even when it's obvious, use the power of the right question at the right time, and how to stop preaching and start planting mental tripwires. Because real influence isn't about telling people what to think, it's about helping them think for themselves. So let's get into it. 1. Why people reject the truth even when it's blindingly obvious. We like to believe we're rational creatures, that when we see facts, we adjust our thinking accordingly. But reality? People don't believe what's true, they believe what's comfortable. People don't change their minds when proven wrong, they change when they feel safe enough to do so. Facts don't break people, their own realizations do. Facts are just polite suggestions until their brain RSVPs to the reality party. This is where cognitive dissonance kicks in, the mental discomfort people feel when new information clashes with their existing worldview. When someone isn't ready to process a truth, their brain doesn't go, "Wow, thanks for enlightening me." Instead, it reacts like this. Denial. That can't be true. Defensiveness. You just don't understand my situation. Deflection. Well, what about this other thing? Attack. Why do you always act like you know everything? Yeah, because clearly their PhD in denial studies trumps your pesky evidence. When people aren't emotionally prepared to confront a truth, they will do anything to avoid it. So if you come at them head on, you don't break through, you reinforce their walls. And yes, it's to their detriment, but you're not helping them. 2. The power of the right question at the right time. So how do you actually get through to someone? You don't tell them what to think, you make them question what they already believe. Think about the moments in your own life when you had to confront something uncomfortable. Was it because someone preached at you until you saw the light? Or was it because a simple question or moment of clarity made you rethink everything? The most powerful truths don't come from external pressure, they come from internal friction. This is why a well-placed question will always hit harder than an aggressive lecture. Good questions disrupt mental autopilot. It's like hitting Alt F4 on their brain's default "everything's fine" software. Most people operate on pre-programmed narratives. My relationship is fine. I'm doing what's best for me. This is just how things are. It is what it is. The right question makes them pause, and in that pause, self-awareness sneaks in. Here are some examples of tripwire questions. Instead of, "Hey, your relationship is toxic," ask, "Hey, if your friend was in your situation, what advice would you give them?" Instead of, "You keep making excuses," ask, "If you had to prove yourself wrong, how would you do it?" Instead of, "Ha, that belief is outdated," ask, what would have to happen for you to change your mind? Instead of, that person is manipulating you, ask, what would you say to someone else in your shoes? These questions don't force a conclusion, they force introspection, like a mirror they can't unsee. Sorry, buddy, that's your face now. Good luck. And once that seed is planted, it grows in their own time. 3. How to stop preaching and start planting mental tripwires. There's a big difference between telling someone the truth and setting them up to realize it themselves. Here's how you make sure you're being effective, not just loud. 1. Gauge their readiness. Not everyone is ready for the truth, and if you push too hard, you'll only make them dig in deeper. And again, yes, it'll be detrimental for themselves only and doesn't hurt you, but the question is, are you really trying to help them or just sabotage them? Ask yourself, are they questioning things already? If they're showing curiosity, they're open. Are they defensive? If so, they'll reject anything you say. Are they emotionally attached to their belief? If yes, their brain will see the truth as a threat, not a revelation. It's less aha and more stranger danger with pom-poms. If someone isn't ready, you don't force it. You leave the tripwire in place and move on. 2. Use questions, not statements. When you tell someone something, their ego immediately decides whether to accept or reject it. When you ask them a question, their own brain has to do the work. And that makes it harder to ignore. Instead of, you're being manipulated, try, if you were an outsider looking in, how would you see this situation? Instead of, you were stuck in a victim mindset, try, how is this belief serving you? Instead of, you're wasting your potential, try, if nothing changes, where do you see yourself in 5 years? A question forces introspection, and self-realization hits way harder than someone else's opinion. Take this example. I once ran into an ex at an event. I walked up, tried to be the bigger person, and she just said, no, and walked away. Her housemate, who was also her ex, was standing there, so instead of calling it out directly, I just asked, hey, is she working on her narcissism? He paused, and then he said, you know, she doesn't want me talking to you, she doesn't want any of us talking to you, and then he walked away. That pause, that's the tripwire. I didn't shove the truth down his throat, I just handed him a shovel and let him dig his own, oh crap, hole. A direct statement, bro, she's controlling everyone around her, can't you see that? Would have been ignored or rejected. A question made him process it himself, if even for a moment. And here's the thing about tripwires. They don't just work on the person you ask. Sometimes the real impact happens later, in the quiet moments, when someone else realizes they're avoiding those same questions. So, if you've ever felt the urge to shut down a conversation, cut someone off, or make sure no one else talks to them either, ask yourself why. Because here's a hard truth. When the truth is on your side, you don't have to control the conversation. 3. Give them space to reach their own conclusion. If you pressure someone to agree with you, they'll resist out of sheer stubbornness. If you drop the thought and walk away, their brain will keep circling it, whether they want to or not. Think about it. When someone forces an idea on you, you resist. But when someone leaves you wondering, you obsess over it. That's why the best tripwires aren't debates. They're moments that stick in your mind long after the conversation ends. Like mental glitter. Good luck shaking that off. 4. Accept that some people will never be ready. Not everyone wakes up. Not everyone grows. Some people will ignore every sign, reject every truth, and stay exactly where they are. And that's not your burden to carry. Your job isn't to force transformation. It's to leave doors open for those who are ready to walk through. The rest, they're still RSVPing maybe to their own wake-up call. Final takeaway. Influence isn't about control, It's about precision. Real persuasion isn't about arguing louder. It's about precision, patience, and knowing when to step back. If someone is ready, they'll walk through the door. If they're not, they'll slam it shut, even if it's to their own detriment. And if you force it, they'll run in the opposite direction. So stop wasting energy shouting at walls. Instead, leave the tripwire in place, walk away, and let them stumble over it when they're ready. You are not their alarm clock. You are the snooze button they'll hate later. Because at the end of the day, the truth always lands harder when you realize it yourself. So here's the question. If someone else were in your exact situation, what advice would you give them?